All righty then. All right, children. How are we today? Yesterday, I owe everybody an apology. Main reason, my internet decided to go to crap and basically died. So, yeah. Yesterday didn't go the way I planned. The internet decided today or yesterday that I wasn't going to be online. Internet decided to go to crap and a handbasket, and yeah, it was less than desirable, I guess, for me. Trying to get sorted here. 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 There we go. Okay. Good. No. Okay. All right. So, I'm going to move over here a little bit. I'm going to get started. Why is this not working great? There's some sort of connection issue going on. It's saying unauthorized. What is going on with Restream? Okay. What is going on my YouTube? Might have to program it myself here in a minute. Well, that was certainly annoying. So I'm going to re-change up the window a bit. Shrinking my window down again. Then we're going to watch SCL. And then we're going to go to... Hi. Hi, Luna. Hello. Yeah, I was just explaining to everybody what happened yesterday. Basically, my stupid computer decided to go kerplooey on me. Internet and everything.
Like they were the ones who put
in. All right, here we go.
in the Tangerine Dream score.
And that had to be done very quickly.
I guess, yeah.
What year was that? 86? 85?
And I appreciate you showing up, Luna, as always.
85 maybe? I don't know. My instinct was 89, but that feels way too
No,
late.
that's way too late.
That's after
way too
I
late.
think it was before Top Gun.
Are you thinking of Legends of the Fall?
No.
No.
Legend was not Legend was not 82. Legend did not come before Risky Business.
No, it was definitely. I mean, he was very young, so I think it was
Legend was not 1982.
I think it was 83 or 84.
Hi, welcome to Star Citizen Live.
Legend, starring Tom Hardy and Tom Hardy.
Not that
2015. That's not the right one. 1985.
85. Okay.
1985.
How's that?
It's basically that and Back to the Future. They're pretty much the
There we
same.
go.
Because when was Top Gun was what 86?
Top Gun was 86. Yeah. No, whatever else anybody ever wants to say about Tom Cruise, his choice of directors, like he hooks up with just his list of directors is a murderer's row.
Oh yeah.
Do you hear that there's an Edge of Tomorrow 2 in development now?
It's been in
Is
development
it
for years.
does it take place on the same day?
I hope so. Here they called it Live,
Edge of
Die,
Tomorrow 2,
Repeat.
finally tomorrow.
Or they called it Live, Die, Repeat here. It's just it should be twice. Like Beetlejuice,
They did it in the
just
States.
Live, Die, Repeat, Live, Die, Repeat. Like that should just.
Audio is very low compared to my mic.
Did they?
Okay.
Post-release,
Let me
like,
see.
on DVD, I think they changed.
Try to find a happy middle.
Fun movie.
Weird choice.
There we go.
Hi everybody. I have no idea if any of that's gonna be in the YouTube version. If you're watching this on YouTube later, this is either a normal start or we just burn the first 90 seconds
There we
with
go.
talk
That's
about
a
Tom
little
Cruise
bit
movies.
better.
Welcome to show Star Citizen Live. I'm your host, Jared Huckabee. If you've never seen Star Citizen Live before, it's where we take a period of time out of the end of our week. Usually it's an hour. In days leading up to CitizenCon with all of our different requirements, sometimes it's going to be a little less, sometimes it's a little more. I think we had an episode the other week that was like an hour 17, so it might be a little bit less. Probably won't be a little bit more.
I got a tight 5.
You got a tight 5, where we take some time out of the end of our week. We sit down with our developers, we chat. We find out a little bit about them. We have a couple of different formats within Star Citizen Live. There's the game dev format, which we've been doing for the last couple weeks, where we invite people, we set up a computer, and we actually watch them work for a while I do some peanut gallery stuff on the side. We've got the Q&A, where we put up a thread on Spectrum and invite you to submit your game-related questions to the team. We ignore like at least a third of them because they're not related to the team that's actually being interviewed, and then we ask the rest of them, they answer them. And then there's this week's show, which is our interview format, where you're not really going to talk about the game much at all. Not the game as you play it, but the project and our esteemed guests' history, how they came to the project, what they do, stuff like that. So it's more a getting to know us kind of show, and our particular likes, like Tom Cruise movies and the oeuvre of Ridley Scott, and there will definitely be some Michael Keaton before we're done. So joining us on the show this week are two folks I would hope need no introduction, but there's always somebody new who joins a project, so we're going to do it anyway. Dave and Will. Dave, Will, how you doing, guys?
Hello.
Hey, how's it going?
I'm
My
good. You're both
microphone
finally here.
volume?
I think this is my first time filming anything
Never
on this.
mind, I'm
on
still
this set.
here.
Yeah, because
Right here.
Yes,
How's
you came
that?
for the
Is
one
that
visit
better?
last year. Well, now this is your first time visit. What do you think?
I'm trying not to get an
It's-
echo.
Do you want?
It's okay.
It's okay. Do you want to wear? Do you want to wear one of the?
That's
helmets?
No,
why.
I'm good. Thank
You
you.
sure?
Yeah, I'm sure.
You can wear.
Can you actually wear the Parasite helmet?
You can't wear the Parasite helmet.
Okay.
But
Sorry
you can
about
wear
that.
the Marine helmet, and you can wear the Jimmy hat, and you can wear that's not the appropriate term for it. Or you
Yeah,
wear the you wear the
They're beautifully made. It's an impressive
Yeah.
collection.
I have an oddly shaped head, so I feel like
You want to try one?
no.
And I don't like helmets.
There's a button on there that says this is going to be one of those shows.
We're learning so much. Tom Cruise helmets.
That's right. Will, because you're in the hot seat here, tell everybody who you are, what you do for Star Citizen.
Hi, I'm Will Weisbaum. I'm the associate narrative director here for Squadron 42 and Star Citizen projects. I've been with the company and just celebrated my 10-year anniversary. So it's been a clear decade developing narrative, lore, stories, writing dialogue, writing backstory pieces, writing design guides to help branding and art, and the mission team create what they can create. And yeah, it's a heck of a lot of fun. I feel really honored to be part of the project, and
Don't
hopefully
worry,
making stuff
green
that you all
platform.
out there are excited
We
about.
will be having
What
actual
month did you start?
gameplay here in a bit. I'm going to try out
my
the
start
hell
date was-
course.
I think it
That
was May.
is 324
2014?
Yeah,
first
that would be-
wave.
Yeah.
10 years.
You guys get to see me make
Nobody's ever
my
looked at
a
Jared
butt
Huckabee
of
and said, "That guy
myself
knows math."
today.
So, okay,
Which
so
is
Tanya,
gonna
so yeah,
be very
you're
funny.
just ahead of me there as far as your I was gonna say terminology. That's not the right word. Your
Tenure?
tenure. Nobody ever looked at that guy and said he's vocabulary.
Yeah, I do have tenure now, so I can't
You
be
guys
fired,
get to
so
see
that's
me
great.
torture
All right, so look at this
myself with Persuade this afternoon
And say whatever
And
you
on
want.
to,
and scream cursing to the heavens.
Dave, tell everybody who you are and what you do.
I'm Dave Haddock. I'm the narrative director here at
I've heard there has been much hair
Squadron
pulling.
42, Star Citizen. Basically, what Will does as well.
Better?
Stand in high heels. Yeah.
Yeah.
Backwards.
Yeah, and I dance. But yeah, just been working on basically like building the fictional universe, writing the scripts. You know, obviously both of us were very heavily involved with the Squadron 42 like production when we actually shot in London. We were down there for that. But yeah, otherwise helping to build out SC and the PU and content for the planets, and we're starting to kind of tackle some of the sort of social dynamics now in the persistent universe and the social areas and stuff like that. But yeah, just basically, you know, neck deep in story and character and dialogue and scripts.
And you're one of the first 5 or 6 people who joined the company. You're up there.
Yeah. Yeah, probably, yeah, 5 or 6.
5 or 6. Yeah, I mean it's just Chris, Sandy, Ortwin.
Yeah. Ben was on, Forrest was doing some stuff. And then there were some people who were kind of helping on the side. Hannes was doing stuff. Paul was doing stuff.
Yeah, a couple of people on the side. Sean Tracy was there, and those are
Yeah,
on
yeah,
the
yeah.
side. He wasn't technically an employee yet, but
Yeah, but yeah, they were kind of volunteering their skills and free time and stuff like that.
so I asked that because that's a lot of what I want to talk about here.
Sean Tracy.
Sean Tracy, basically, he's not here to defend himself.
No, that's fair.
So, for Inside Star Citizen, we just hit our 500th episode.
Awesome.
Wow,
Congratulations.
Yeah, you know,
Which is
carrying that
really
legacy
good.
back through Around the Verse,
500
and through Wingman's
episodes
Hangar,
of
and whatnot.
anything.
As there's this concept of companies as these static, unchanging, unevolving, ungrowing
Monolithic.
entities. I don't think it's absurd to say that the Blizzard of 1998 is not the Blizzard of 2004 when I worked there. It's not the same as the Blizzard of 2024.
Oh,
You know,
don't go there.
it's
No, 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 no.
Microsoft, the same thing. Google, the same thing. We're no immune to that. We have grown. We have evolved. We have changed over.
Yeah, we're just like Microsoft and Google.
You know, that's not what I meant.
Oh boy.
This change is inevitable. So, one of my big interests is in not maintaining that history, but at least not losing it. Those old days are always really important to me because that's when I discovered the project and stuff. You know, old names like you mentioned, Ben Lesnick just a few minutes ago and stuff. Wingman's Hangar, created by Eric Wingman Peterson and stuff. So part of what I want to talk to you about this episode is called Narrative History. And I want to talk to you about your history and your time with the project and stuff and coming to it. So Dave, because you were here first, if you don't mind, I'm going to start with Dave. How did you connect with Chris Roberts and CIG?
Dave, it's okay. Can I take this?
Yeah, go for it. Knock it out.
I mean, if you know, go ahead.
Yeah, it was sort of a weird path. My background was in film, so I worked in production. And I did sound, I did some editing, I did a bunch of sort of writing on the side, trying to get something off the ground with very little success. But I had actually was an intern at Chris's production company in LA. So Adam Weezer, who's also on the narrative team, was there as well. That's how I know him. John Schimmel. So basically, I kind of met Chris through that. I ended up working on a movie he was producing called Outlander, and worked on that for about 2.5 years, and got to go up while they were filming it up in Nova Scotia, and shoot behind the scenes stuff, and basically was kind of just hovering around. I was a kind of a good gopher dude to do a bunch of stuff. So it was a PA, director's assistant, VFX coordinator, stuff, whatever needed to be done, basically. But I got to know, that's how I got to know Chris. And so in the aftermath of that, we ended up kind of collaborating. He had an idea that he was thinking of developing that I ended up helping kind of flesh out, and we would just sort of work every day for a couple months and try to build a story and an outline and stuff like that. And then, you know, it's kind of what happens with a lot of film projects. Like, he got busy, you know, other things took priority and stuff like that, and sort of kind of fizzled. But it was a really fun dynamic. Like,
Yeah, that's
you know,
a good point,
very kind
Luna.
of
I'm going
open
to
and
pause
free-flowing
what you
ideas
said.
and kind of throw stuff out.
Everyone else who can't read what Luna said, she wrote, he could have said things change over time. That's it. Lol. And I loved Outlander. Which Outlander, Luna? I'm unfamiliar with that. Is that the new series or the more recent one? I can't remember. Correct me, please. I've heard the recent series is really good. But you probably think of that differently, you know, or have your own thoughts on that. Are you talking about the original Outlander DVD series? I think I know the one you're talking about. Didn't it have like Kevin Sorbo or somebody in it? I can't remember. It's been so long since I've seen the original movie. Yeah.
Out, and it was, you know, no one was
Sorry
precious
about
anything.
that.
It was always just a very collaborative kind of
I
creative
was
environment.
just trying to figure out which one you were
and
talking
then
about.
I actually honestly didn't, you know, kind of kept in sporadic touch, but, you know, I was off doing other stuff, and, you know, also / unemployed for a really long time, but still trying to get writing off the ground with very little success. And then Chris basically reached out to me and asked, like, you know, hey, I've, you know, got this thing I'm putting together, you know, would you be willing to talk about it? And so I went over to his house, and he showed me kind of the early prototype of what ended up being the GDC demo. And I got to fly in a Hornet, and I crashed into the Bengal a couple of times and stuff like that. And so he basically kind of pitched what he was sort of conceiving and thinking about trying to put together. And interestingly enough, so we went out and had lunch and kind of talked about it a bit, and I had a job interview literally right after that. So I left there and went to a job interview at a VFX house that I did not get. But basically, you know, he asked if I wanted to come on board, and I was like, "Are you sure?" Because I don't know games. But you know, so we started building the lore and the fiction. You know, in the build up to the GDC announcement, and we started doing the kind of the framework for the fictional history of the game became what became known as the time capsules, which were, you know, the 30 days leading up to his announcement of what would be Star Citizen. We would do a drop every day, basically, to like kind of flash forward throughout kind of key historical moments in the game's fiction, and it ended with, you know, the final post was just today, and then Chris gave his presentation.
Are those time capsules still available?
They still are.
They are
and they're
on.
still a foundational part of the lore we do. Like,
Yeah.
I still reference them to this day when writing historical things to get grounded in, like, okay, where in our history is this taking place, or when we've been fleshing in more and more of that timeline.
Yeah.
It's impressive.
Yeah, they hold up, which was like, because again, it was that thing of like, it was 900 years of history, so it was like, what are the main kind of landmarks? And yeah, thankfully they've still kind of held up, and we're able to still kind of, point to them.
And if you're interested in checking out those time capsules, you can go to robertspacindustries.com. After you get through all the thing, after you ask it to log you in, you're like, why don't you remember me? You can then go to Comlink, and then there's a series pull down, and it's not alphabetical. That would be too easy. But somewhere in the middle there, you'll see time capsule, and you can find all those Comlinks.
And then I would sort it by old to new. So you start basically with present day, and then it'll take you all the way up to. But it's a great crash course. We had to do kind of an onboarding lore primer thing, and that's my first recommendation is like, if you want a real high level overview of what the kind of crux of the universe is, start with the old and go to the modern day, and you'll be kind of conversational.
Before we go forward, I want to step back a little bit. You met Chris before Star Citizen.
Mm-hmm.
What was he like? What was your impression of Chris
Oh,
when you
no.
first met him?
This
And remember,
could be
you
one
have
of
tenure,
those
so you can't be fired.
questions.
I didn't know you did an impression of Chris.
Well, I mean, the irony was that I played Wing Commander growing up, and actually sold Wing Commander 2 and 3 when I worked at Babbage's in high school. So that was why when I saw the job posting at his production company, I was like, oh, cool. Like I knew his games going into it. But it was cool, I mean, again, it was an office, so it was like, I was working front desk and reading scripts and, getting coffee and, doing the usual stuff. But yeah, it was a cool dynamic. It was like I said, Adam Weezer with the company was there at the time, and John Schimmel was president of production there and stuff like that.
John
So,
Schimmel,
it was a really fun group of people, and had a blast there.
You mentioned Chris isn't precious about some of those things. I've found that in my time. He's not afraid of the better idea. If a better idea enters the conversation, it doesn't really matter where it comes from. There's no like, oh well, you shouldn't have an opinion on this or whatever. If a better idea is introduced, like it's like, well, can we do that?
Yeah, that sounds good.
And that's actually, it's one of the things that is both. You're just going to be completely candid here. It can be a source of frustration, but also tremendous freedom and capability. Oh yeah, that's Pete. Hi, Pete.
Floater. Okay.
And that's that. Sometimes the better idea comes, and it's like, oh well, you're still 6 months out, so there's lots of times to pivot. So sometimes the better idea shows up 3 days before something's supposed to go public, and you're like, oh, do we have time? And it's like,
Right.
well, is it really the better idea? And it's like, everybody's like, yeah, it is. And it's like, well, let's do everything we can to make it happen because, we deserve to do we deserve it, and the people who support the project deserve to encounter the better idea. Now, does it always end up being the better idea? That's up for debate. Right. But at the time, we always think it's a better idea. And I always really like that. When people ask me about what it's like to work here, I always cite that Chris's acceptance of the better idea, no matter who it comes from, where it comes from, and when it comes from, and how that tends to filter down to the directors and everybody.
Yeah, it's about making the best game that we can make. And so it's
Or the best video,
Yeah.
the best trailer, the best post, the best whatever. Yeah, it affects everything now.
Yeah, I mean, we're always blazing new trails, I think, in a lot of what we do, and we don't tend to hold the course just because it's the course we're on, right? Now, of course, deadlines and production discussions and costs and all that kind of stuff still factor into discussions. I've been there where it's like, well, we can't do this now, or we're working on this, so let's wait. But that vision gets set, and we're always moving towards it. So, I think.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's a lot of I mentioned the frustration that comes to us. There's also frustration that our players can sometimes feel when the course isn't held. When it's like, okay, we've had a better idea and we're going to change this. We thought it was going to be this, and then when we got there, somebody had a better idea.
That's
We really
neat,
think this other
Luna
direction
Maria.
is somewhere
It's
better
a neat
to go.
home connection.
There are
to
many
that.
instances of that happening over the course of Star
Very
Citizen's 12
neat.
years.
I also think simultaneously that there has been a bedrock foundational element to the project from day one that like we can keep pointing back to and being like, no, we said this is what it is. Like we drift away, but we come back to like, are we addressing what we want to make? What is the core of Star Citizen, and how do we get there? So.
Yeah. Of course, I'm sure if you asked 100 Star Citizens, you get 95 different answers about what Star Citizen is supposed to be. We've all got this idea and stuff like this, and that's part of the unique thing of 5 studios around the world. It's synthesizing everybody's idea into a whole, and stuff like that. So, how long were you here before Will was here?
2 years.
2 years. So what were those? I'm trying to go
The halcyon
chronological
days,
here.
the glory.
The halcyon, obviously the better days. What do you remember of those first days? What do you remember? What was CIG like?
I do know Dave ate at the same
Small.
restaurant every day before I came on board.
That is true. Yeah, I'm a very lazy eater. It's more about just needing sustenance. So
Tiny?
I found like that place
getting
is
a
good.
lot of
I'll just
stuff.
go there. And so I just went to literally the same place.
Was it that sandwich shop on Santa Monica?
No, it was Tender Greens,
Okay.
which you could do a lot worse. But no, it was a lot sparser. I mean, again, it was the reaction to the initial announcement was kind of overwhelming. I mean, it crashed the site while Chris was giving the presentation. But yeah, so it was like, I mean, a lot of it, once it was like, oh, okay, so this is happening, it became I was doing 3 dispatches a week. I had the Cal Mason story, the Kid Crimson story, and a news dispatch. So it was like Monday was Cal Mason, Wednesday was news dispatch, and Friday was Kid Crimson installments. So it was a lot, and then we started doing Jump Point on top of that. So I was doing short stories for that and fiction. But it was like kind of solidifying, like, oh, okay, so we need to figure out all the things that we sort of glazed over in our initial conversations of like, well, what's in the Vandal really like and stuff like that. Like starting to dive into that, starting to kind of test out storylines and outlines for Squadron 42. What's the story going to be? Talking with Chris about that and kind of getting his download of like where he'd like to see the story go, and starting to sketch out ideas for that, characters. Yeah, it was sort of, I mean, it was an interesting time because it was very like, oh wow, we're doing this thing. And again, like at the time, I was hoping it was going to do well, as I was working on it and I was getting excited about the project. But again, you have projects that start up, especially in, working in films where it's like, oh, there's a lot of interest and then it wanes and something comes together. It seems like it's going to happen, then it falls apart, so you get kind of guarded about, getting too excited about stuff so you don't get too crestfallen. But when it actually starts to kind of kick off, it's like, oh, okay, well, all right, where do we start? What do I do now? So.
You mentioned the Kid Crimson. I've talked to you about the Kid Crimson a number of times. That was my favorite series. That's Tales of Kid Crimson. What were the Cal Mason stories called?
Cassandra's Tears.
Oh, I don't know why that association with that. So Cassandra's Tears is Cal Mason. Cal Mason, this isn't a secret, but Cal Mason's a character in Squadron 42.
Well, now it's not a secret.
Spoilers.
Check IMDb; it's there. Also, there's like "Form up, Cal," in the video, the whole line last year. So these short stories aren't just random stories that not all any random stories that just also exist in the universe. Some of them actually feature characters that the eventual players will encounter.
Yeah. I mean, it's always been. I mean, it's been an ongoing discussion about it over the years. People have consistently sort of asked, like, are these actual events that are happening? Are they fictionalized events? And we always kind of skirt the line of like, there's sort of fictionalized accounts of real people who do exist. So.
Yeah, I think for the most part, it shakes out that those story series are stories in Star Citizen.
Yeah.
So some of them are maybe based on true things, but the way they're told in the details, it's still like you can imagine someone in SC reading a book called Cassandra's Tears.
Yeah.
Well, and I think the early comparisons too were always the kind of like, oh, well, we want to ultimately do like this, the Sky. Are we going to do the Skyrim books that you can find and stuff like that? And it was like, oh, well, maybe we.
Oh, by the way, Luna Maria. Next week's SCL is Q&A on this week's ISC stations, contested stations, and asteroid bases, and jump gates. So this is going to be interesting, to say the least. Very interesting.
take these and they can just be those stories that you find throughout the universe.
Yeah, I remember my very first squadron shirt said "Cal is my wingman"
Yeah.
on the back. It's like that. So that was always my confirmation that, oh, he's actually in the game, even before I came to work here. All right, so at this point we're in May 2024 or 2014.
2014, yeah.
How did you get hooked up with the project?
I was actually, previously I'd been working at Sony Santa Monica, and
On what?
huh?
On what?
It was an unannounced project that ended up not going forward, and so there was a bit of a reduction in workforce, caught up a whole bunch of people, and
Allowed to say what? You're allowed to say what it was?
no.
Okay. Tell me later.
I mean, previously I'd been working on the God of War titles, but they were trying to develop a new IP, and it didn't end up happening. And so
I hate it when that
Sony, as kind of a
happens.
consolation prize, held a job fair with all the local game studios and invited them out to be like, hey, unfortunately, we're letting a bunch of talented people go. Come and meet them, which was a really
That's kinda
nice
cool.
thing. And I had like done all my research before about who was hiring narrative and blah, blah, blah. And I hadn't even planned to go to the Cloud Imperium booth because they weren't hiring narrative, and I was just having a soda at a table, and I started chatting with someone, and they were like, "Oh,
I wish
we
they
might
would
be
have
looking for
told
writers
us
soon.
what
You should give me your information." And so ended up talking to Dave and
find
John,
out, but
and
you know
we ended
what?
up
That's
clicking
what
really well.
hacking and leaks
And
are
so
for. We'll
started
find
working
out
on the
soon
project.
enough.
And it was funny, like at the time in our smaller office in Santa Monica, I would be sitting on like a little chair like this with my laptop on my keyboard, with Dave and John in the office.
Well, wasn't it the irony when the day you started, I was out of town.
Yeah, I think something
Yeah,
like that.
I think I was over here.
They also gave me a desk, and then the next week when I came in, it was gone.
Oh, right.
And I was like, what happened? And apparently they had moved all my stuff without telling me, and I was like, I just got fired.
Well, because they put you across the office, and then I think because we were in this sort of like icebox corner office thing, which is
Yeah.
the coldest place on earth, which is but yeah, they for some reason put Will across the office, and then we were like, move him.
I mean, it was great. I mean, one of the first things that I got a chance to write on was the commercial for the M50. It was coming out, and before that, Dave had done a bunch of really cool commercials that were all very much like car commercials in vibe. So it was kind of a challenge at that point of like, okay, could we do one of the ship commercials that wasn't in tone? And that's kind of how the idea of Jax came about.
Yeah, that was the first Galactic Gear.
Greetings
Yeah,
over there on the
like-
Rumble
yeah, yeah.
platform. How are we
So,
this
who
afternoon,
created Jax?
folks?
Yeah.
So totally original idea, not based on anything. And he liked
Legally distinct.
So it was kind of mind-blowing too, because like I was used to working on video game projects that were like you did something and then worked on it for 4 or 5 years in secret, and then it came out. But I wrote that script, and I think like within 2 months or something like that, they had produced this amazing cinematic, and it was out there and people were reacting to it. And that's kind of like I fell in love with the project for the immediacy of writing a lore post and going and reading what people were saying about it and being like, oh, they're right about that, or like, oh, they didn't understand what I was going for. I got to get better at doing that. And it was a really interesting way to write. I've never had that experience before.
I very much relate to that. Before the pandemic, I was approached by another game.
Okay, I'm going to pause right here. They're mentioning lore. There's only one real big gripe I have with CIG's lore in-game at the moment. You know what that is? We need libraries or somehow to look up all the information in-game, like a codex or something, instead of having to go online and research it. That's kind of defeats the purpose of having game lore if we can't look it up in game. You know, just my opinion, just my 2 cents. I'm hoping there comes a time where we eventually have game lore that is uploaded and ready to go, you know, for a variety of things. Anyways, we're going to let Jared continue.
To basically, hey, you want to come over and do what you do, but for us. And you know, I wasn't interested, but I was like, you know, I took the conversation.
Who was it?
And like it's I don't know, it's a big field full of stars, and and the first question I asked was, how often do I get to publish? How often, you know, how many videos? And they're like, well, it won't be for a few years. You just kind of film for a couple years, and then there'll be a handful of stuff towards release. And I'm just like, no, I'm addicted to the immediacy. I'm addicted to the I can have an idea for a show, put all the pieces in motion, film it, edit, put it out in just under 7 days and stuff like that. Yes, we try to have ideas more sooner. I think last week I gave up the entire schedule for the rest of the season. So it's not always like that, but sometimes there have been a number of occasions when the show that we had intended to go out with the next week can't. Like the feature just doesn't work. Like the game cap guys who are saints.
Know the
they're just like,
feeling.
it does not work.
Know the
we
feeling,
cannot
Jared.
capture any footage. It's just not there. And I'm like, oh, so we've lost next week's show. Okay, now I have to invent an entirely new show from scratch, you know, in 7 days. And that's actually how Sprint Reports were born way back in the day. You know, a piece of my history there. But yeah, that immediacy is a big project. And before we go on, I want to shout out. I want to make sure we didn't bury that. Sony layoffs this year and last year have been a brutal, just effing brutal. I didn't use my one swear. Just brutal for the game industry. And to hear a story like that, where it's like sometimes these things are unavoidable. It's you know, economic downturns, whatever. The project didn't work out, not going to make it. Not every Titan can be pivoted to Overwatch. You know, that they realized they had to let people go, and they set up a job fair, and they invited a whole bunch of other game studios and said, "Come meet these people. They're fantastic. We just can't keep them."
Yeah.
That is mind blowing to me.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome.
So, Sony Santa Monica. Good job. Now, I know at the beginning we said no company is a monolith and they change over time. I have no idea if that's how they still are, but at least at that point, that's just, I have big respect for that. I have big respect for that for them. All right, so your first thing was Jax.
Yeah, pretty up there. I'm sure I did some stuff on the website before that, but that stuck in my head. And then like a year later, we were shooting Squadron already. So like there was like just a flurry of activity on getting all of that shore up for our first big performance capture shoot, and getting to go over here to the UK and travel and stuff.
Yeah, that's exactly where I want to go next. So this is about a year out from the PCAP shoot when you start. You start, and about a year later, there's going to that big, so May to April, you're going to have that big shoot at Imaginarium, Andy Serkis's performance capture stage down in where was it?
Ealing.
Tell me about the run-up to that, because I'm sure you had drafts. I'm sure you had bits and pieces and like bullet point stuff, but now you've got to.
Yeah, we had. I mean, drafts is putting it mildly. I mean, Chapter 1 had 82 drafts.
Chapter 1 of Squadron 42 had 82 drafts.
82 drafts. I mean, again, some of those were minor changes, some were heavier changes. But it was a lot of rewriting. But we ended up doing a just to better overlap with the UK. It was what, like 2 months, where we were going into the office in Santa Monica at like 4 o'clock in the morning. Basically, it was like we would work from 4.
I would not be doing
LA
4 o'clock in the morning.
As you know, like the traffic there is awful. And so we ended up kind of screwing ourselves, because the idea was like, all right, well, we'll go super early, so that gives us more time to work with or be online the same time as like the S42 design team, so we can ask questions if on the fly as we're writing and churning out this content, and working with them on like what's the latest flow and all this stuff. But yeah, we ended up kind of screwing ourselves, because the idea was like, well, if we start at 4 in the morning, like we kick off at like 2 in the afternoon, But LA traffic is so bad that it would
Barely
take
awake.
2.5 hours for me to get home.
Right.
So I would just end up staying till 6 anyway.
Yeah.
So it was just, it was a dumb idea. But yeah, so we did that, and we were like kicking out a lot of drafts and just basically hammering out scripts for a couple months leading up to the shoot.
And how does that process work? Okay. Is one of you at the keyboard where the other one is over your shoulder saying, do this, do this, this? Do you divide and conquer and then hand each other the stuff? What's
Kind of
the
that,
process?
yeah. It was a lot of divide and conquer. It was, because usually it would just be like, hey, you grab this chapter, I'll grab this chapter, whatever. And then, yeah, do a draft, swap,
Bob in my
Give notes
head.
and
give notes, and
rewrite
then
it.
rewrite.
But yeah,
Not my
we don't
tire.
usually like sit and hammer stuff out at the same time.
No.
So.
Did you ever? I've heard some stories about writing groups or writing tandems where they'll kind of assign characters to each one, so that the character voice is always consistent. Like this, after the thing is done, they'll go through it, pass, and this person will take all of this person's dialogue, and this person will take all that person's dialogue. Is that?
No, I don't think so. I mean, there would be types of moments where it'd be like, because Will did a lot of the interstitial stuff is mostly his stuff, like a lot of the inner character dynamic stuff with like the crew. I think you took kind of an initial pass on a lot of that stuff. But if I ended up having to do one, like I would sort of ask if I had questions of like kind of what's your hook into this character, what's their voice. But a lot of times, I mean, again,
We just try to keep the characters wildly inconsistent at all
Yeah, yeah,
times.
yeah.
And that's
like
helped a
absolute
lot.
Trying to
schizophrenic.
stay awake.
But it's again like as you start reading the stuff, I think we're kind of working sequentially.
It's
So it
kinda
was like
stretched.
if I read an earlier draft, I could kind of get a sense of how he was writing the character, and then just kind of pick that up and
And,
go with it.
and when we got close to final, we were doing reading together and making notes because I think a lot of things got smoothed out as
Yeah.
like we did our final reads and polishing and like, we'd be talking about, we're going to shoot these 10 pages tomorrow, sitting at the,
Oh well, the production was
yeah,
a whole
yeah.
other-
We're about to get into the production.
Okay.
This is still there. So let's just do it since you introduced it. So the production, you guys were involved in the casting process as well, working with John Crew. You had some feedback.
John Schimmel.
What did I say, John Crew?
yeah. I mean, shout
He's
out
in
to John
City.
Crew.
I mean, John Crew is vital to the project.
Yeah.
But I guess just to go back about writing Squadron, coming on the project, and I cannot wait for everyone to get to experience this. But like, as far as the direction on Chris and just like wanting these really, allowing us to give these very, hopefully like meaningful small moments that I think is a little bit, it's not completely unique in games, but I think it is still special when you can come across it, where it's just people kind of being people and these small little things for the player to discover, and that he was excited about that and wanted more of that. So
Well, and also, I mean, one of the big kind of rules that we were given when approaching this stuff was that he intentionally did not want to, and again, I understand the methodology behind it, but what kind of falls into a sort of a general video game trope of, you walk up to a character, you poke the button, and they just kind of vomit their life story out to you. So you understand, why you need to go get those 20 wolf hearts or whatever. Like,
Whoa.
my family's dead, and oh, I'm so sad. And
it's tough. You got like 5 lines to do, like have the player be able to understand everything about this person, and
Yeah.
so you end up being.
So but he was like, I don't want that. I want this to kind of onion skin it. So like, the players need to kind of spend time around these people if they want to learn what's going on. So it was like, it opened up a lot of fun doors of, and again, the fact that we had to kind of accommodate for a full functioning crew, that like, you could just place these little vignettes and moments scattered around the ship of just people being people.
And we don't force it on. Like, hopefully, the players, if they're not interested in diving deeper into the narrative, then they can just run past it, and it's fine.
There are going to be those streamers when the time comes who's just like straight line, doesn't interact with anything, just goes from one mission to the next mission, just fight, finish.
Well, and I also like the fact that we accommodate for that. Like that to me is kind of a nice thing.
That you'll still have a deep, hopefully meaningful experience, even if you're like,
Those guys
screw all
are
these
speed
NPCs. I don't
runners.
care about them. I'm
They
here to
know
shoot
they
stuff.
are. They're
Yeah, I
not
just
real
wanna do
players.
mission to mission.
So at the production. You guys are down, you guys spend 3 months down in Ealing. It seemed
It was
like
broken up a little more at the beginning. We were there a lot.
4. I think
it was a
4
while. I was here with the project at that point, and
It was April through July, mid-July.
Yeah.
So it was almost, I think it was just over 4 months.
so what was that shoot like?
Uh,
I asked John Schimmel this question, and he just it was Vietnam flashback, kind of just.
we had 1 day off.
Yeah,
Yeah, that was it. 1 day.
1 day
off.
off in 4 months.
Literally, like 7 days a week. No, literally 1 day off. I mean, I loved it. It was wonderful. It was chaotic. It was, I mean, like with any production movie or, obviously with this game, like, there's an energy of like,
Why am I
we got to do this, we
getting
got to do this,
multiple
which is kind of adrenaline fueled. But it was a really great crew that was down there among Imaginarium, among the production team there. Shout out Philippa and Iona and that team. The Imaginarium crew was awesome. They had this amazing workshop where they were fabricating props for us on the fly, and the team down there as well as the team up here who was supporting everybody. It was like everybody really pulled together and because we had to shoot it.
Yeah.
Like we had to get it done. So it was kind of a nice focus.
Philippa and Iona helped get this made.
I know.
Philippa's name's on the little plaque right there.
Oh, nice.
That you can't see. Iona didn't come until after the plaque was commissioned, so she wasn't on there, unfortunately.
There.
So post that, obviously a big focus later in 2015.
I don't know
the persistent
why I'm so
universe,
tired, Chad.
launches with the Stanton system and stuff like this. You got to start. I know there was a lot of discussion about what should be the first system. I remember from my time that the original thought was that the first system should be Terra. Like it just seemed like it was the center of everything.
Here's some
It's
old
like
information.
Like we have to pick somewhere to start in the middle kind of thing. And then a great example of that, never afraid of the better idea kind of thing, realizing Stanton is essentially the vertical slice of everything in the PU. Terra is locked down and pristine and paradise or whatever, but Stanton allows for just about every single gameplay loop that Star Citizen will ever have. So it was a good place to start and get this stuff developed. Talk to me about having to make lore design backgrounds for 100 star systems. Like, was that just a really busy afternoon?
I think like with a lot of Star Citizen, because it's such an expansive game experience and there's so much going on that we've talked about this before, that we tend to cast a wide net and then we hone the parts that need honing and polishing. Not only does that save our sanity and allow us to accomplish the work we need to do, it also gives the project the breathing room it needs to change and grow. Because every patch we're learning and things are changing. And a lot of our lore has been written in a way that makes it flexible enough that it can grow and accommodate with the project. And then sometimes, unfortunately, we have to do retcons, we have to change stuff. Like Pyro has been like the first big example of that. I'm totally not answering your question. I'm just
No, you
but like Pyro is like a really big learning experience when we brought it to life because we had this idea of like, I think some people remember from the original Galactic Guides, like a much harsher, inhospitable world. And that was also coming back from a lot of our early nuggets of planning where there weren't going to be that many planets to touch down. We wanted reasons to make stuff don't go zones because we didn't think we could handle it. So it was all blocked off. But then coming in, it's like, no, we want players to be able to explore more of these planets. We're building these planets, let's get them down there. And then it's like, well, if everything is super uncomfortable and inhospitable, then it doesn't make sense to have outposts there, and then we don't have the gameplay that we want. So it's like, all right, maybe some of the continents are inhospitable. Maybe one of the planets is closed off, but then let's open up the other ones and have them be much bigger play spaces. And I think that's the Pyro that you're seeing today, which makes a lot more sense for the game play site loops and experience that we want to have.
I love this example specifically. One of my recurring phrases that I'm sure people are absolutely tired of hearing me say is that it's not game construction, it's game development. There's this idea that you start a game with every answer figured out. That you start a game with like the full blueprint. every piece of engineering has already been worked out. It's been approved by the city, and you just build it. And that's not how games are made at all. Over the years, you grow, I grow. David, not so much. You have better ideas. You have experiences that change your perspective. You hire new people in. You have these new people come with new ideas and come with experiences that you don't have. And how boring would it be if you hired into a company and like, no, we set everything we were ever going to do back in 2012, and there's no room for innovation. There's no room for creativity. There's no room for ideation. Any of that stuff. So it's all of that stuff gets factored in, and you call
that
it
would
a
be
retcon.
pretty boring.
I call it just a
gotta
natural
admit.
evolution. It is game development. This is how it happens. And the Pyro system that we're working on right now, I think is far more engaging and far more interesting than what was in the original Galactic Guide. Not a slight to you guys.
Wow.
But
It sure feels like one, Jared.
Shots fired.
I mean, I thought the original one was shit. There, I used my one. All right, no. So, how is that process? Is there ever a moment where you resist those changes, where there's pushback to those changes, where it's, have you ever can you think of a moment where you're like, no, I feel really strongly you can't change this. This undermines the entire idea behind this.
Yes?
Yeah? Want to throw somebody under the bus? Remember, you have tenure. It's cool.
No, I mean, with Pyro, I think there was a lot of that back and forth conversations about like, okay, yeah, we're adding in more places for the player to explore, but how do we hold on to those core elements of what Pyro is all about? I guess it's not as drastic. It's never as drastic because I pride ourselves on being part of the team.
Well, and a lot of the stuff is pretty malleable. I mean, and again, it's a creative endeavor. I mean, that's part of the thing of working in any creative industry. It's also, I mean, a thing too of like, I always kind of have a general approach of things. If there's like a change gets presented, and I'm like, I'm not quite sure if that's really going to line up with what we've been saying in the past, I'll voice that. And then if, a game director says, well, we really need it, okay, we'll figure out how to make it work. Like, it's ultimately like not up to me, like for me as myself. Like, so I'm here to help support the project. So if I think something's really important, I'll voice that. But if it gets shot down, then I don't take it personally. I just go, okay, well, we'll figure out a way to make it happy. And in my own head, go, all right, I'll have to figure out a way to reconcile this and find a solution to it that I think is okay and that I'm okay with. So, but it's a collaborative medium. You have to be able to do that. I think if you kind of dig in your feet and stomp your feet and go, no, I mean,
Yeah, Jim. So while we're talking on Pyro, Pyro is the next star system. We're still targeting this year. I see the comments in chat, and I understand. I'm not saying targeting is not the same as saying it's going to. We all know that these things come when they're ready. That's the only answer to the one question. But gee howdy is everybody here working as hard as they can to make this the year. Give me some background on Pyro. Not how many planets and stuff like this, but what was the story? What's the story behind Pyro?
I mean, the original story behind it was that basically it was a solar system discovered in, I think it was end of the 25th
Yeah, I was
century.
I would say don't do a
Like
year.
2493?
Astropub will be on you if you get the year right.
Yeah, that's fair. But the idea was that basically at the core of it, and the origin of the name, which was also, I think, the pyrotechnic amalgamated, but it was also the fact that the central star of it was a kind of a fluctuating, pulsating solar flare. So it wasn't ideal for habitation. So basically, the government was like, well, we might as well just grab what we can from here. It's not going to be like that great for mass development on a mass scale. So we'll just kind of sell mining rights to it, and they can just kind of grab resources and call it a day.
And in kind of the adjustment, while the planets may have been more like habitable, traveling there was really dangerous at the time because of the flare star, and we have it in lore that human shield technology really took off post the Tavaran War, like we learned a lot of things from them. So all of a sudden you see in lore like another resurgence of exploiting the resources in the system.
Yeah, what used to be dangerous is not as bad, but still not good. But.
And there was a big resource grab, and it depleted a lot of the stuff. Now, on a player scale, there's still a lot there. A lot of times when we say depleted, we mean on a massive industrial scale that can't support like thousands of workers in a unified way. But someone who's out there with their pickaxe in a tunnel can still hit the mother load. So,
Right. What caused the exodus? What caused, there was a period where everybody was like, pyro is the next big thing, kind of like a gold rush, if you will, and then that changed.
There's been repeated gold rushes throughout its history as new jump points have been discovered, as new technology has allowed them to access more of the system's resources. But then those money rushes keep falling away, and there's been kind of permanent infrastructure. In a lot of reasons, because it's still a dangerous system with the flare star at the heart of it, just kind of makes it not a nice place to live long term. So you have people come, take what they can, and then get out. And so, go on.
Well, and in in those lapsed periods in between, you have other elements moving into the system and setting up, because it's sort of an unmonitored area. So you have the proliferation of kind of these squatters and these outlaws and whatever who are sort of using the system, which again is kind of increasing the danger to people who are just trying to fly through or trying to earn a living or whatever.
So as the system becomes more valuable, you said these repeated gold rushes, they discover more jump points. There's a jump point to Nyx, there's a jump point to Castra, I don't remember all the other ones. Terra, like this. It's like, why did the UEE never claim it?
A lot of the times when it's become, should we claim and expend our resources on settling the system, it's come at a bad time for the UE. There's been wars, there's been adjustments, the fall of the Messer Empire, and so the government has just kind of chosen not to take it on and take on that burden. And this is a question that's still going on right now, and players get to be a part of that conversation of, should the UE take over the system and make it safer? Because it's having consequences in the form of Xenothreat coming into Stanton and really messing stuff up.
Repeatedly.
So I think that's kind of what we're setting up for the players to take part in.
And there's several gangs in Pyro System. Next week's ISC is Fire. But on the week after that, we're going to meet a bit of the Citizens for Prosperity and the Headhunters. So
Fire is it? It's in like a really awesome episode, that episode.
It is.
I thought it was about the festival.
It is an awesome episode, except for that audio bug that's currently dropping the frame rate down to 1, and all my GameCap guys can't capture anything right now because of an audio bug. Told you those guys are saints. So after Fire, we'll meet the Citizens of Prosperity and the Headhunters there. So I don't want to go into too much of it here, but the Rough and Ready. We met them officially. We've had little peeks to them. We met them officially. Alex made a lovely little cinematic to your story. I don't know if you had a chance to watch the episode yet, but he animated your entire story of Rook and his rise to power with the Rough and Ready and the founding of it and everything. So that was Alex, who was in here on the weekend to do that, because he really wanted it to be good, and we didn't have time in our normal schedule, and he came in on the weekend.
I didn't ask for that.
No, nobody asked for that. Alex is just a pro, and I give him a lot of crap. And so this is my one kudos, so I can continue to give him a lot of crap for the next year, and I'll feel like I'm balanced. I don't remember where we were. Oh, Rough and Ready, obviously. Taking over that Xenothreat. Are there any? We once did an SCL. We once did an SCL here where we brainstormed other gangs for the Pyro system.
Yeah.
Without being precise, I mean, how many different factions? How chaotic is the story? And I'm only speaking to the story of this place. The reality will be the reality. But storyline-wise, how many people are vying over this? How many groups are there?
Well, again, this is just fictionally, we had outlined Xenothreat, Fire Rats, Darkside Rovers, Hollow Boys, who are the Vigilantes?
Overlords.
I
helped with that one.
Gravola, I think.
You're doing great. You
Thank you.
got more than me.
And then there was I think it was like the Lost Ones or something like that. It was like a human trafficking or sentient trafficking group that everyone hated.
Well, everyone
Yeah.
hates Xenothreat. I feel like Xenothreat's the one that
Yeah, they're pretty. Yeah, I mean, the headhunters particularly, but yeah.
I mean, and to foreshadow a little bit right now, we're exploring the idea that some of the gangs from neighboring systems are now pouring in and putting resources into Pyro. So that's hopefully something that'll be
might be
coming
on
at
the
some
verge of
point.
another gold rush.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. If you're curious, if you're a subscriber, in the subscriber exclusive store, you'll have access to 6 variants of Overlord armor that were designed over 6 key characters within the Overlord gang. It was one of the earliest things I did back when I ran the subscriber program. And it was a really happy time with me and Adam. Shout out to Adam, getting to flesh that out. And he let me give them all my favorite G.I. Joe names and stuff. It's like, no, these guys need to have like G.I. Joe style code names and stuff. So little miniature contribution I got to make to the lore.
Because Xenothreat is kind of, well, I guess
they're cool armors.
I said I shouldn't talk about it much, but like Xenothreat had a unique place in the Outlaws because they weren't financially driven, they're politically driven.
Yeah.
And that's make them take risks that I think a lot of the other outlaw groups in Pyro aren't happy about because there's been renewed attention on the system.
Yeah, they're outlaws only because they're vigilantes. It's their they're out there trying to
It's their
do
MO.
their version.
They're
of,
terrorists, basically. They're trying to implement
Well.
like political change through violence and I mean the textbook thing. But again, it's like Will said. I mean, headhunters hate the fact that they're attracting so much attention because now security forces are focused back on Pyro, and they're like, just let us do our thing.
So we're almost out of time.
Oh no.
Yeah, we're almost out of time. I mentioned them earlier. There are lore, narrative, backstory thing is not everybody's cup of tea. We mentioned those people who will just run through Squadron. There are people who play Star Citizen and they never read any of the logs, the book where you canonized
Lore is a cup
my
of
leak
coffee.
of 2015. Which I still really appreciate. That's what got canonized. Thank you guys. But probably the person out front as far as the lore is Astropub, sometimes known as Astro Historian, depending on which YouTube thing. He always makes these great videos where he dives deep into the lore and everything. He's also kind of annoying. Would you change something right now? Just think of anything right now and just willfully change it, retcon it right now to drive him crazy. It doesn't have to be big. I'm abusing my power.
No? Oh my goodness, Jared! If you knew the amount of research that we have to do before every change, because our lore is a wicked web. You pull on one strand. Have you seen the hit film Madam Web? It's a lot like that.
Assholes just make shit up. Oh, that's 3.
Uh-oh.
Oh no. I have to do the dance of shame. All right, folks, that about does it for this week's Star Citizen Live. Thank you for taking the time to sit here and watch us and hang out with 2 very dear friends, or at least one dear friend in Dave. Just, damn. It was nice about Alex, and that was like all the nice I had left. If you haven't, check out this week's ISC. It's a great look at some of the new space-based gameplay coming to the Pyro system, including contested zones and asteroid bases. You want to check that out. Next week's ISC is Fire, which we haven't talked about in a while. I think we went cool on it.
Yeah.
But now we're back talking about Fire as it's...
Things are really heating up.
Yeah, things are heating. Thank you, Will, for the upcoming Alpha 4.0. Check that out. Next Friday, we've got Assistant Design Director Rick Porter and Ed Fuller on. They're going to take your questions. You remember the Jump Point episode we did for episode 500? We're going to take your questions about Jump Point and space-based gameplay and stuff like that. So a follow-up of last week's show, or this week's show, and the one 2 weeks ago. So you can look for a thread up on Spectrum that usually goes up on Monday. So you can submit your questions. That's a standard Q&A episode where you'll be able to ask them all those questions about jump points and stuff. You will have to contact the ATC first before you can submit your question.
Thankfully, no one had any narrative questions about jump points, so we didn't have to talk about that.
Thanks for watching. I'm Jared. That's Will. That's Dave. That's a different Dave back there. That's Pete on the cans. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next week, everybody. Bye.
The button. Do I not have internet again? What's going on here? That's really weird. I am not checking my credentials again. Let me try this again. One, two. Try this again. One more time. Apparently code 19. Really? My session expired? Really? I just... Ugh. Jerk computer. Sure. Okay. Trying to see what's going on with this, Luna. A lot of people are saying code 19,000 is very common. It might be a password issue, or it may be a genuine computer glitch. This is about the third or fourth time I've run this, so it needs to be escalated up the chain as soon as possible. And I'm thinking I'm not going to be able to log in again. Yep. Same song, same rodeo, unfortunately. How about you, Luna? Have you seen any I'm not re-verifying my credentials. Screw you. Stupid machine. Well, I can definitely tell you it's difficult to log in and play a game if you can't log in and play a game. Yeah, no problem. Kind of annoyed right now. Hmm. Well, this is frustrating. Today we're pretty low. Trying to log in is a nightmare today. Well, I guess the gaming aspect of my fun today's not happening, considering let me know when you're back, Luna. Let me know when you're back, Luna. Folks, I owe everybody an apology. I fully wanted, keyword wanted, to play Star Citizen today, but it's not even letting me log in. There's a bug. It's literally saying something along the lines of error code 19,000. I don't know what it means, and it seems like I'm not the only person having the bug too. A lot of people are having error code 19,000 right now. Just so everybody knows. So if you're playing Star Citizen right now and you're able to, it's just frustrating to me. Super frustrating to me that right now I can't even get into the hangars to test around stuff. But that's okay. First wave is always garbage. Hot garbage at that. For, you know, various reasons. I kind of knew it would be a bad patch. The way it was going. I had that feeling, I guess you could say, in my gut. So why am I not... Okay, what is this? I might have to check Restream here in a minute. See if my back end's acting. That's why it's logged out. That's what's going on. Okay. Whenever you're back, Luna, let me know. Damn it. I've been waiting a while. 2 minutes. See if anyone's over on the green platform today. Green triangle. Sorry, guys, over on Rumble. I was really wanting to showcase off 324 today, but unfortunately, it looks like a lot of people are having issues with the patch. Has anyone heard? A ton of people are having error code 19,000. Not sure what's up with that, but definitely not a good look. So dead around. Oh, shoot. Yeah. Super disappointed about not being able to play it today. As it is, I'm bummed. Tomatoes. That is weird, Luna. I do feel bad about it. By the way, I'm getting off here, Luna. I'm going to be raiding info runners over on Twitch, and it is weird. I mean, I'm just so bummed about it, but I'm going to go ahead and raid them, okay? I'll keep trying throughout the week, Luna. You have a good afternoon, 07.